Thank you everyone so much for coming out. My style is going to be a bit different than Vidya's. If you have watched my show before, you might know that I am prone to bouts of being a bit entertaining. So without that, let's get into it. So I name this the front lines against extremism, and it's not just radical Islam, although that is true, that threatens our communities. There is a whole host of extremists working together that pose a great threat to Jewish community, Hindu community, Kashmir community, and the wider Western community. So we have radical Islam, intersectional theory or leftist, the media malpractice, the enablers, globalist theory, UN control, and of course the alt-right. So I'm going to start this pretty quickly. How many of you have, let's say, because not everyone's here at the Jewish community, how many of you don't know a lot about Israel? Fair. Excellent, that's great, I'm glad you're here. So, we're going to debunk Palestine in under 2 minutes. Okay, now you might have heard of the Bible, but not many people have a copy of the Palestinian Bible, which I do. It's the exact same thing, except they added in one line, because on the first day, God created the heavens, the earth, and the Palestinian people. Which means the Palestinian people predate animals, plants, human beings. They were there first. Everything you see around you is a Palestinian. Everything is Palestinian. Now, this might be a bit silly, but it gets even sillier when you actually look at what they do. You might not know a lot about the Bible, but you've probably all heard the term David and Goliath. Right? King David and Goliath. All right, the story is, David was an Israelite, and Goliath was a Philistine. He had the slingshot, he killed Goliath, became really famous, then became the second king of Israel, established as the capital in Jerusalem. Goliath is a Philistine. Now the Philistines were ancient enemies of the Jewish people in biblical times. So, let's fast forward a couple thousand years. In the year 132, there are the Bar Kokhba revolts. This is a religious uprising against the Romans, who at that point are occupying Judea, as it's called. It's called Judea. We are called Jews because we come from Judea. Judea is the land you call Israel. So, as a punishment for the Bar Kokhba revolts, the emperor at the time renames the area Palestine, or Philistine, to name it after the ancient enemies of the Israelis, the Philistines, as punishment, which is where the name Palestine comes from. Now, it gets better, because the Palestinians are indigenous to Israel. But when you break down the name Palestine, it's Plishtut in ancient Hebrew. Plishtut isn't really a people, it's ancient Hebrew for invaders. So when you say the Palestinians are indigenous to Israel, what you are really saying is the invaders of Israel are indigenous to Israel. That is literally, if you break down the meaning of that phrase, what it means. Now, it gets even better, because the Palestinians can't even say Palestine. There is no P sound in Arabic. Find an Arabic word that says P. You cannot. Which is why, when you hear Hamas talk about Palestine, they will talk about Palestine or Palestine, because there is no Palestine in Arabic. But they're the indigenous to everything. So, Palestine. Now, I'm not going to go into all the history of Israel because we'd be here all night. There's a lot of issues that can get us here all night. This is all you really need to know as a 101, okay? This is British mandate for Palestine. This is the mandatory area. Now, it was not mandated. It's called a mandate, right? There's a French mandate for Syria, a British mandate for Iraq. But if you notice the British mandate for Palestine, you might notice that's 2 countries today. That is modern Israel, and this is modern Jordan. Now, Palestine was agreed upon, British mandate for Palestine, as a homeland for the Jewish people that would respect the rights of all minorities there. And this was agreed upon in 1920 San Remo Conference. San Remo is legally binding. Arabs were there, Brits were there, French were there, Jews were there, Japanese, a whole host of things are there. Ratified by the League of Nations, made legal by the United Nations. So all of this is fully legal. Legally, this is legal Israel. Now, 1922, this is put out. In 1923, who isn't happy? Arabs. Arabs not very happy. So this Palestine is actually schismed into 2. That is where you get East Palestine and West Palestine. East Palestine becomes the Transjordan, what you now know as Jordan. West Palestine becomes Israel. Now, it was not called Palestine because the Arabs in the 1920s hated the name Palestine. Why? They cannot say it. Why live in a country you cannot say? So they changed it to Jordan. The Jews don't like the name Palestine because it's an ancient insult for Philistines. We'd rather be living in Israel. But there's still a lot of hoopla after this happens. Okay. Now, we're supposed to be. So here we're going to talk about the three-headed monster of anti-Semitism. This is what we deal with today. The alt-right or white supremacy, the radical left, Antifa and their friends, radical Islam, and don't worry, they're not anti-Semitic, they're just anti-Zionist. Zionism is the right for Jewish people for self-determination in the land of Israel. So they don't want it, they're not Nazis, they just want to eradicate 6 to 6.5 million Jews, in case you're confused. Now, let's get into the big one. So the greatest enemy of Israel since its inception is the Muslim Brotherhood. And they're the enemy of anyone who likes not radical Islam. So there is Hassan al-Banna. He is the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood in 1929. There is his good friend, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, Haj Amin al-Husseini. That is the Mufti's very good friend as well. Does anyone know who that is? Adolf Hitler. Now, Haj Amin al-Husseini was good friends with Adolf Hitler, Adolf Eichmann. He was part of planning the final solution. There are letters between him and Eichmann about the final solution. There were plans to build an extermination camp in Jerusalem. So Zionism and Israel caused everyone was so peaceful. Israel's 1948. He's collaborating with Hitler. This is 1930s, okay? So it's a lot. Now, Haj Amin al-Husseini also did travel to Europe. He had an active role in the Holocaust, the Second World War. He recruited Muslims into the SS. This is the Nazi paramilitary force, like the SS, the ideological force of their army. He went to Bosnia. He managed to recruit a bunch of Bosnian Muslims. And because of his work, 500,000 Jewish Hungarians were able to be murdered because the partisans had actually been able to disrupt the trains to the camps in Hungary, but because he raised enough SS members, the Nazis were able to guard the trains and kill 500,000 Hungarian Jews. That is his legacy. So when Shada Tlaib talks about, I'm so proud of my Palestinian brothers for saving from the whole... No, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem had a personal hand in 500,000 Jews dying. Okay, so now, here's some examples. In 1929, Hebron, there is a massacre. Again, why? Because Israel exists. This is still 20 years beforehand. In the Arab riots in the 1930s, Haj Amin al-Husseini would be given fighters from the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt from his friend Hassan al-Banna. So the Muslim Brotherhood says we're non-violent, except when it comes to Israel and Jews. The Muslim Brotherhood has been very clear, we are for violence if we are killing Jews. 100% of the time, this has always been their thing. Also, if you read any of Said Qutb, big killing everyone. Jewish refugees were not allowed to come to British Mandate Palestine during the Holocaust because of the Arab revolts and uprisings. So for a whole decade, you had slaughter of people. Now, there's also the way we reject the 1947 partition plan in this war. They are creators of Hamas. I'm going to go back to Hebron right now because you hear a lot about Hebron. Hebron is an ancient Jewish city. Jews don't think of a lot of things as holy. I mean, the Temple Mount is the holy thing, but there's not a lot of holy objects, although Israel is holy to us. If there is a second holiest city in Judaism, it's Hebron. It is where the tombs of the patriarchs and matriarchs are. So you might know a bit about Judaism. There's Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and their wives. They're buried in Hebron. Now the tomb of the patriarchs, according to UNESCO and the United Nations, is a Palestinian. No, it is. It's a Palestinian heritage site. An ancient Palestinian heritage site. So truth doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We're going to get into why truth doesn't matter, but you just should know that. So when you talk about Jews resettling, these settlers in Hebron, a lot of the settlers in Hebron were people in 1967 who returned to their literal homes that they were kicked out of in the 1929. There are people who actually, like there's me on the wall, like little Daniel at 4'2" or whatever he is. They were going there. These are settlers, according to the world community. Okay, now, here's where there's what we have in common. Jamaat-e-Islami. This is the Hindus' version of the Muslim Brotherhood. It's called the Muslim Brotherhood in Southeast Asia, founded in 1941. It's basically the same thing. We have Hamas. Hamas wants to kill us all. They have a charter. They do have a charter. Hamas has a charter. Kill all the Jews. It's very, very clear. And they wanted, Israel is their land because Muslims once sat down there, so it's Muslim. Says it in their charter. You can go look it up. Jamaat-e-Islami has a militant faction, Hezbollah Mujahideen. They have a charter. Hindus bad. Jews, think of Hamas, call it Hezbollah Mujahideen, take the word Jew, throw in Hindu, take the word Israel and Palestine, take it out, put in Kashmir, boom, you got a Hezbollah Mujahideen. Hindus, reverse the opposite, it's the same thing. Same thing, we have the same enemies, they do the same stuff. Now, in Canada, what do we love? Hockey, maple syrup, and funding terrorism. Okay? We love to fund terrorism. So, Hamas gets the most of the money because they're the big guys, but don't feel left out, Hindus. Hezbollah Mujahideen gets government funding too. Now, it's so bad, and this is the worst one, the ISNA. There's an organization called the Islamic Society of North America, ISNA, you might know it. They have a Reviving the Islamic Spirit conference coming up soon. Justin Trudeau will make an appearance. He says he shared values with ISNA. Now, ISNA last year had its third terrorism funding violation, and it was suspended by the CRA. So the Canadian government said, hey ISNA, no more money, you're not a charity this year, you're suspended for funding, sending hundreds of thousands of dollars to Hezbollah Mujahideen, bad boys. Also, for our Canadian Summer Jobs Program, guess who gets summer jobs money? ISNA. Well, they were suspended from the Canadian government. The Canadian government suspended ISNA, said you're funding terrorism, also, here's $25,000. Now, the Canadian Summer Jobs Program, you have to be like fully informed of abortion. Apparently, apparently they're very big fans of abortion at ISNA, I don't know. So that was the most blatant example of how the hell did they get government funding? When they were suspended by the very government that gave them funding, but it does not matter. Okay, so this whole part is, how does Islamic extremism get here? Why should Canadians who aren't Hindu, aren't Jewish, why should you care about this? So this next part is, I'm going to explain what I call ideological laundering through human rights language. So ideal laundering, if you know money laundering, the mob, you know, racketeering, sending it through a washing machine business, this is ideological laundering, this is going to be this part. So, two things. The radical left's erosion of academia through intersectionality, this is a big part of it. The ideologically corrupt media, and just media breaking down, that's another part of it. And then we have our enablers and useful idiots who play a big role in making Canada a place and a safe haven for all those lovely foreign travelers returning here to spread peace. Now, be prepared to get into this is going to be really, really tough, but this is modern academia. So put your thinking caps on, because you're about to learn Intersectionality 101. If you have not been to university in the last 10 years, prepare yourselves, because this is, I'm going to teach you everything you will learn if you take like a sociology course for 4 years. All right, whites are bad, non-whites are good. Gay is better than straight, trans beats gay, men bad, woman good, Christians are bad, Muslims are good, Jews are just half a step above white, Asians, yo, let's just ignore them for now. This is important. Life is a zero-sum game. It's very important. People are either oppressed or oppressors, and apostates will be punished. Do we get that? Congratulations, you now all have a master's in sociology from York University. So collect your degrees on the way out. Andrew will be handing them out. You're all now qualified to teach a course at York University. And the reason I say yes.
What do you mean by life is a zero-sum game?
Life is a zero. Excellent question. We get that. So that means, like, if I have something, if I am rich, it's because you're poor. So,
okay,
it's like
that's connected to the next bullet point.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Oppressor. Exactly.
Yeah.
It means, so, an example of Israel. You know, the reason that Palestinians are doing so poorly is because Israel has money, and the more money Israel has, it means the less they will take Palestinians. It's a flawed economic concept, but it's also used by the radical left for the rich. It is why if we just put in 1,000,000% tax on the billionaires, all that money then goes to us. It's economically flawed, we can get into why, but it's a very important fundamental assessment of the modern left. And I say apostates will be punished because this pyramid does not apply to you if you do not play the game. Think of Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who I hope you all know. She's fantastic, I highly recommend her books. She is a Somali refugee, victim of anti-Semitism, black Somali refugee woman, but she believes in Western values of freedom in the individual, so she is boycotted from Brandeis University, she's dangerous, she's no one, right? So if you don't believe in the game, you're punished, and you're scum of the earth. So you're Ayaan Hirsi Ali. Now this is from the Alberta Civil Liberties Research Center. This is one of the key assessments of the radical left now that I just want to bring up. All of this is them, but you'll hear that, oh, black people can't be racist towards whites, or these people can't be racist, because racism now is about power plus privilege. Power and privilege. And as I see, racism is an exercise of power, not discriminating negative discrimination based on people's race is racism. But now it's the intersection of power and privilege in society, and it's all about power. Now, I detest this thoroughly because, to me, this is the logic of the Ku Klux Klan. We all heard Klan. What power? What power? The Klan's fundamental assertion in the 1920s to 1950s was white power. Whites are the most powerful people in this society. White people built this society. Intermixing the other less powerful people with one white society will corrupt white society and ruin it. That's why we must maintain white power. And the logical conclusion is segregation. Separate but equal. But now you have intersectionality, which says whites are the most powerful. Who has the most power in this structure? The whites, because the whites can be racist anyway. Now, it's very clear when you're at university, they let you know that white people are bad. But I remember taking a course called Human Geographies, where you learn nothing about human beings or geography. And it was basically, if I could sum it up, it's white power, white people are the best, but it was the most condescending racist course I've ever taken. Everything was about the Aboriginals. We learned nothing about the Aboriginals either, but you essentially learn that before white people came, there was a bunch of non-white people, and they were just playing the bongos, smoking weed, having a great time, everything was peaceful, and then whites came along, and this was an actual assertion of a far-left professor I had, is that white people value and invented innovation. Now, innovation is bad to her. It's also the bedrock of our modern society. It's the reason why you're not all freezing to death right now in Canada. But innovation was white. Now, that was bad, and white people are bad for innovating. But how insane and racist is that? The radical left. Now, when you get into this concept of white power, and the left will say, oh, we need to break down the systematic, institutional racist power of the whites. Well, isn't that exactly what the Klan was saying? Now, you're just saying it from the opposite end, which is why the logical conclusion of intersectional leftism is segregation, separate but equal. Here is a black-only graduation and commencement cert at Harvard University. Blacks-only graduation at Harvard from the New York Times. So if you want to say, oh, this is just a fringe, it's just a fringe of the radical left, it's a fringe, don't worry about it, then you have to say that Harvard University and the New York Times are fringe organizations. Separate but equal. All right, now let's meet our friend, everyone's favorite friend. This is no, that's Justin Trudeau in 20 years. But that's true, it's coming here. The left needs classical anti-Semitism. It does. Now, maybe not if you're older, when the left, you know, the liberal left, not them, but this new intersectional left, this theory of the left, it needs anti-Semitism to be true. Because Jews pose a big, big, big problem for left-wing ideology when it comes to their economic policies and social policies. The left will make the contention that racism and discrimination can explain everything, especially economic inequality. So blacks, white, you're poor? Well, that's because people are discriminating against you. Now, there are some legitimate studies on how racism has negative cognitive defects. I'm not throwing racism out the window here. But the fundamental contention of the left is the colored people need us. By the way, colored people is racism. They are now people of color, which is not racism. This is the level of thinking. So people of color need us to fix this, because if we get rid of racism, well, then you'll make more money. The reason why there's inequality in education, whatever, is because of racism. However, Jews do financially better than the average population. Yeah, we all know this. So do Indians, but Jews make more money than the general population. Okay? We can talk about the other population, we can talk about why, culture, and all that. Who experiences the most hate crimes in our society? Jews. Jews experience the most hate crimes, both physical, racial, whatever you want to call it, the highest rate of hate crimes, yet they earn more money. We're actually not at the top in this society, but we're above average. How do you explain that? It runs counter to your ideology, which is why you need to institute in, again, a zero-sum game. Right? Then now, the Jews have some sort of shadowy cabal behind them. It's not the good Jews. There's some good Jews, right? There's some yes master Jews, Bernie Farber and his friends. Right? There's some Jews who will, oh, we're the good ones. But you need the anti-Semitism because you need to assert, well, the reason why the Jews are doing well in the system, yes, racism is still bad, but they're cheating in the game. right? There's this cabal, it's the bankers, or it's the Zionists, or it's Israel, right? There's some, I have a friend who says I'm not anti-Semitic, right? He went to Hebrew day school once, but there's this other Jews behind the scenes, and they're playing this nefarious game, right? As we talked about it. The Jews have all this money, and they're getting it from the Palestinians, right? So you need this ideology, you need this sort of classical shadowy cabal of Jews doing something behind the scenes to maintain the integrity of your failed economic ideology. So that's why, if you don't think that Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party is our Liberal Party in 15 years at most, you're asleep. All right. So let's get on to another one of our friends, the media. Look at those poor children. All of these are innocent children. Now, here's a game that the media plays on Israel. These are people that Hamas has taken credit for, said, these are our fighters. We did it. They died during jihad. They died fighting Israel. But they released to the NGOs and the media and Amnesty International that this 12-year-old boy, he died being innocent. That's an 11-year-old girl, she died innocent. And then the NGOs say, the government in Gaza reports Israel killed innocent, whatever. Now, it only lasts for a day before they have to retract it, but it gets out there. We don't talk about the government in Gaza is the registered terrorist organization, Hamas, which means they get to lie to the NGOs. The NGOs tweet it out. Then they go around and take credit, saying, they're terrorists. Everyone celebrates. They hand out sweets and candy in the streets. The media is asleep. Then the Jews have to get onto its ominous report in Canada, or else we have to write to the CBC or whatever to issue a retraction. Then, okay, we'll change the third paragraph a little bit to reflect that, okay, yes, they were actually ended up being terrorists. But damage done. Don't take my word for it. Listen to Hamas. So during the Great March of Return, or the Invasion of Peace, as I name it, there were 62 people killed in the border riots. They were trying to openly breach the border with Israel for the purpose of killing them. As Hamas said, the leader of Hamas in the riot said, we will go into Israel and tear their hearts out. So while trying to tear the hearts out of Jews, 62 people died. 50 of them were from Hamas. Actually, 3 of them were Islamic Jihad, 9 of them were not. But the media reported 62 innocent people. Even while Hamas was getting and saying, actually 50 of them were our members who died trying to kill Jews in jihad. We're very proud of them. No retractions, doesn't matter. Now, is this only a Jewish problem? Not really. And how gullible is the media? Let's meet my friend, Conservative Senator Salma Atulajan. Salma Atulajan is there. She's in front of a mic. She is wearing her Pakistan costume, just flags of Pakistan. This is during the Article 370 thing. Now, she is at the Pakistani consulate making a speech about Kashmiri independence. Kashmir needs independence. India is evil. Pakistan it's just concerned about all India. Now, while she is opining about Kashmiri independence, she is standing behind this sign, which in Urdu says, Kashmir will become Pakistan. One of these slogans from the 1990 genocide. This is a woman, a conservative senator, at the Pakistani consulate saying Kashmir needs independence, standing beside a sign that says it does not. How obvious can you be? And the answer is incredibly obvious because the media don't care. Am I the greatest media person of all time? I hope not. But am I the only one? No, look. And she do all the standard things of, oh, India, we needed Pakistan because India wasn't a safe place for Muslims and Muslims would be discriminated against. Meanwhile, every non-Muslim has been almost ethnically cleansed out of Pakistan. It's illegal to even be an Ahmadi Muslim in Pakistan. It's a different denomination. It's illegal. It's considered blasphemy. Sikhs are almost all dead. All the Hindus are gone. Christians are... We had the Asia Bibi case, if you remember, tried to kill her. So, hopefully this video works. Here's something where I say, what's the line here? So this comes from an India Day celebration here in Toronto. An India Day group of Indians went to go celebrate India. Rather innocuous, but at the Pakistani consulate, where our friend Salma Atulajan made a speech, they whipped up a mob of Pakistani Islamists and Khalistani radicals. They whipped up the mob, then they marched down to front of City Hall, and they accosted a group of Indians. This one guy in a white shirt, he is the lone Indian there. So hopefully this plays. So as you see, now he's going out. Okay, let me just get my voice. So he's going, and you see he'll be spit on and he'll be punched. So one Indian he gets assaulted by the mob. Now we have this Pakistani blogger talking about Hindus are dirty, God, whatever. Then you'll see the last part of this is he'll be thrown, the one Indian guy will be thrown away by the police. So the police are about to throw the one Indian guy who had been assaulted, they're about to violently remove him. Now the CTV, when they covered it, they didn't cover the fact that he's getting spit on 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, they had this footage, and you know they had this footage because the only footage they ended up showing was this part. They see him being pushed away. Right, they missed him getting hit and spit on. Right? And it's interesting, you say, what? Usually, right, isn't sensational news supposed to sell? If it bleeds, it leads? What's a better story than a bunch of peaceful Indians were just happened to be there, and then a mob, whipped up by a foreign country, went to assault Canadians. And they did, they assaulted this guy and spit him. Look at this. Isn't this newsworthy? But it was reported the same way they reported Israel Pakistan. A fight broke out between India and Pakistan. Right? One Indian guy was standing there, he was being punched, equal whatever. Right? It's the exact same targets. Exact same mentality. Alright. So, now let's get to our useful idiots. This is how anti-Semitism, this is Bernie Farber, the chief enabler of anti-Semitism in Canada. He is on the CBC constantly as an expert in anti-Semitism. He is the head of the Anti-Hate Network. He is a synagogue threatener extraordinaire. And accuses others what he is guilty of. Now, the synagogue threatening thing is, there was a conference going to be put on at a synagogue, Beth Tikva. It's also the synagogue that I will be speaking at this week. They're going to have a conference about different types of extremism in Canada, radical left, radical right, Islamic extremism. Farber calls up the rabbi, basically says, if you don't get this shut down, there's going to be consequences. I've seen the emails, the rabbi then talked to me. A day later, Michael Coren comes out with an article in Now magazine with the name of the synagogue, a picture of it saying, the disturbing anti-Muslim sentiment in the Jewish community. Beth Tikva shows a picture of it. Synagogue starts getting death threats and threats. They have to cancel the conference because the police says, we can give you security for the day, but we can't provide year-round security, which is what they were doing because they all did a conference, people threatening to kill them. Obviously, this is how it goes. Now, there's a bit more to this. What is anti-Semitism to Bernie Farber? Is wanting to kill Jews anti-Semitism? We're about to experience what is not. So this is from Toronto Masjid. It's at Young and Dundas. It is a masjid run by a man, Altawani Al-Attiyah. He has said to the National Post that this mosque follows the values of the Muslim Brotherhood. It is part of an organization called the Muslim Association of Canada, which on their website at the time this incident happened said they follow the Islamic revival movement put out by Hassan al-Banna, who is the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is it's the same thing. So on the website they said, we are part of the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas is part of the Muslim Brotherhood, and this prayer happens. And don't worry Hindus, you are not left out of this prayer, and we have the thing, right? Allah give victory to the Islam and stand-in Muslims. Humiliate the polytheists. So basically he goes on to say, Jews and Christians, spare not one of them, slay them one by one. There's indeed the part that he'll end with, cleanse the Al-Aqsa Mosque from the filth of the Jews, cleanse the Al-Aqsa Mosque from the filth of the Jews. We're going to get back to the Al-Aqsa Mosque later. That is the Dome of the Rock or the Temple Mount. It's this hot button issue. And it's going to be very important in sort of the similarities between Hindu and Kashmir and Israel. So purify the Al-Aqsa Mosque from the filth of the Jews. Now, Bernie Farber wrote an article in the Toronto Star saying he met this man praying beside him, and he was the nicest man in the world. Shocked. Shocked. This is the greatest human being that there ever has been. Read the Toronto Star article. The greatest man. The kindest. He's preaching again now, but he's so amazing. What was the real problem? The real problem was the radical right. The radical right had mistranslated some of this, right? It was something like, instead of destroy, it really meant annihilate, or instead of annihilate, it meant destroy, and this was a mistranslation. So the radical right, him and Karen Mock, they meet with the Muslim Association of Canada. Now I know people, this imam has pro-ISIS, pro-Al-Nusra, pro-Al-Qaeda tweets out there, other anti-Semitic tweets. I know people that sent it to Bernie Farber before he met with him. Bernie Farber ignored it because this man, or maybe he's just the nicest guy ever. Maybe he just get in the room and said, you know what? I want to kill the Jews and humiliate the polytheists, but let's go to brunch, because I'm great, and he probably treated Bernie to brunch, and they reformed him, and now he's teaching, now he's back at it. All right. Here's another friend who did, this is how, if you want to know how we got here, this was scheduled to be a talk on Tuesday, but then one of the Farber friends gets a hold of Beth Tikva, sends a threatening email. I'm a BITE member and officer, and I also actively engage in the Jewish-Muslim dialogue as an individual through the Shalom Hartman Institute. I see that Daniel Bordman is on your agenda December 10th. Not sure if you've seen his videos online, but a lot of leans far right and anti-Islam. On one recent video, he aligned my good friend Mohammed Hashem with the Muslim Brotherhood, an outright lie. Bordman very well might be entertaining to a point, thank you. But no doubt he's more suited for a JDL meeting than this esteemed congregation. CJA condemned him in a not-so-subtle tweet. Please vet him yourself and whatever. Now, CJA didn't condemn me. They stood up for Mohammed Hashem. And the reason I called out Mohammed Hashem, it was the Sufis restaurant thing. Do you remember the Danforth shooting? Yeah. Do you remember that when the blood was still on the streets of the Danforth, the family put out a statement saying that, you know the guy who wrote the family statement? Mohammed Hashem. Do you remember the hijab hoax? Yeah. How did they get it to school right away? How was it there? And there's organizations there? The NCCM was there. With who? Mohammed Hashem. Brags about it too. So I just brought up, and the NCCM, which has been identified in Canadian Senate testimony as a front organization for the Muslim Brotherhood, get into it. Come talk to me after if you want more proof. They called him the driving force behind the NCCM. So I thought I laid out a solid case. If anyone wants to question me on that, I've got more on him. But let's just talk about it. All right. So now we get to the two different levels of enablement. Okay. The first one is not that bad. All right. The second one is the real problem. But I have named. This is why I'm a little bit controversial. Our first group is the first set of Jews into the new ovens. All right. This would be CJA, Hillel, the rest of the do nothing crew. They are popular with politicians because they ask them to do the very minimum. Very minimum. CJA wants you to do the minimum. They accept the minimum and they want you to do the minimum, which is why politicians love them. Because if anti-Semitism happens, you say, I'm sorry, or it's bad. You did your work. They are easily fooled. They love to be lied to. They love it. That's why they work with Mohammed Hashem. They will work with the NCCM. And the NCCM is the one who put up the Muslim voting guide that said, we need BDS. That was the NCCM. CJA worked with them. Because the CJA, no, we care about anti-Semitism a lot. You do? Yeah, of course we do. We've made friends. Look at us. We're CJA. Look, we've shaken hands. Oh, great. Apologies solve everything to this crew. An apology, right? You blow up the World Trade Centers. We got an apology from Osama bin Laden. Mission accomplished. This is if CJA was running the world. Now, CJA and their friends have two modes. They do two things. They are one, shocked, and two, they are concerned. Okay, this is what they do. They are shocked and concerned, or shocked or concerned. Now, I have broken into Shimon Fogel's office and stolen the world's only CJA to English dictionary, which means you're about to learn what is shocked. Shocked, definition according to CJA. There has been an obvious and highly predictable act of anti-Semitism that we were previously warned about by community members and smaller organizations. Now that the wider community is also aware of it and in a state of outrage or hurt, we are making some noise about it to maintain the illusion that our organization actually does something. Shocked. In CGs. Concerned. Verb. Definition. There is an impending act of anti-Semitism from an anti-Semitic individual or organization that we have done nothing about in the past and will continue to do nothing about in the future. However, another Jewish organization has brought this incident to the attention of the Jewish community. Therefore, we are making some noise about it to maintain the illusion that we actually do something. Shocked or concerned. This is what they mean. This is what CJA does. So sometimes you might have reached out to a Jewish organization and they weren't that useful. It's because you were probably talking to CJA and friends. Don't do that. They don't do anything for themselves. They won't do anything for you. Okay, so now here's the real problem. Here's the real problem in our community, and this goes for every community. The competition to be the last ones into the ovens. This is J Street, J Space, if not now, independent Jewish voices, Jewish Voice for Peace, the New Israel Front, and all their friends. These are the pro-BDS Jews. This is when anti-Semitism happens. They run to the defense and say, no, Linda Sarsour, she's not anti-Semitic, she's just anti-Zionist, we need something, 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 Palestinian rights, or whatever. Now, if I'm a betting man, which sometimes I are, if you're going to put money down on this, I highly suggest you put your money on independent Jewish voices. These will be the people pushing the people from If Not Now into the ovens. Okay, what is not anti-Semitism to independent Jewish voices? BDS or destroying Israel. Saying Jews or Zionists control the media or America. Mobs harassing Jews. Saying Jews drink the blood of children. Calling for a genocide of Jews and actually killing Jews. None of these things qualify as anti-Semitism to independent Jewish voices. We learned that because of two recent incidents. One, the Hassan Gallet incident. This was the MP that was so anti-Semitic even the liberals had to get rid of him. Some of the things he supported was a man who said, Jews drink the blood of kids. He supported a Hamas member and praised him for killing Jews. He also called someone, got on radio and said, Zionists in Israel control the media. Then at Lawrence, Venton, and Beirut, they also saw there's no anti-Semitism there, of course, BDS. The mob harassing Jews, calling for an intifada, or Jews go back in the ovens, open calls to genocide towards Jews. None of this is anti-Semitism. Independent Jewish Voices conducted an examination. They found no anti-Semitism in killing Jews, wanting to kill Jews, trying to kill Jews, saying Jews drink your blood. All of this is not anti-Semitism to independent Jewish Voices, which is why they are Hamas's best friend. Thankfully broke up with my younger brother. All right. Getting radical Islam into the West. How do we do this? How does the ideology, which is dismembering people in Kashmir, blowing up people on buses in Israel, how does it get here? So how does this ideological laundering work? So the Intifada. When you get people at York University last week, and you get a bunch of white kids from Alberta to chant, Intifada, don't be the Intifada, right? You're legitimizing this. And what is the Intifada? So there are groups of Intifadas, it's uprisings. And in the uprising, I'll give you a personal story. I went to Jewish day school as a kid. I might have been too well behaved one day that I was kicked out of class. I assume I did too much homework and I was thrown out of class. Happened a lot to me. As I was sitting outside of class, the Hebrew teacher in the class beside me, a couple minutes in, she runs out of the room crying. I check in to see if they had pushed her to crying. Turns out the story was her young nephew was blown up on a school bus in Israel trying to go to school. One of the many suicide bombings of the Second Intifada. Hundreds of suicide bombings. They're still praised. By the way, your Canadian taxpayer dollars, just so you know, your taxpayer dollars will pay to go to UNRWA, which goes to Hamas, and they pay out the families of the people who perpetrate these murders. You are paying for it. That was the Second Intifada. So, when you get a chant Antifada, it's not hate speech, and you have people calling for Antifadas out there, you're legitimizing suicide bombings in these groups. So, yes, not all Muslims are terrorists, no. But when the number of Muslims gets to who supports suicide bombings, it's different than those who support the concept of the Intifada, where there are suicide bombings. It's a gateway ideology, right? Once you get someone, your foot in the door to say, well, yeah, the Intifada is legitimate, and they're mentally committed to the Intifada. When if they're Muslim, then, oh, okay, yes, suicide bombings are acceptable if it's a bunch of Jews. That makes it easier for suicide bombings to be acceptable. Well, if Article 370 is revoked, then you can suicide bomb. Or if there's Islamophobia, then you can suicide bomb. Right? It's a gateway down there. And it also whitewashes this ideology within the wider public. It's not just the Muslim students yelling for the Intifada. Kashmiri independence. It sounds really nice. Don't you want independence for Kashmir? Independence. Yeah, we learned that's a lie. When Salma Tulajan says she wants a Kashmir independence, she does it behind a sign that says Kashmir will become Pakistan. So independent. Also, there are parts of Kashmir occupied by Pakistan and China, which we won't get into. But that's how it works, right? You launder through the human. Do you believe in Palestinian human rights? And here's how it works. It's an institute called the Sunrise Institute. So there's a momentum movement, and it's different in the UK and the US. But they have something called Sunrise, which is their environmental thing. But they also have If Not Now, which is their sort of fake Jewish pro-Palestinian activism. So basically, you get to university. Do you like trees? You want to save the trees? Who likes trees? I like trees. Should we keep the trees? Oh, you like trees? Sign here. Okay. Do you like Palestinians? Sure. So I'm there. It's all, they have networks and networks. If not now, it's connected to Sunrise. It's part of the wider Momentum umbrella. All these people are in the same clubs, and believe me, it is easy to be a Palestinian activist. It's so easy. Truth doesn't matter, right? Palestine's been there since when? Day one. Day one. Everyone's Palestinian. You're a Palestinian, you're a Palestinian, you're a Palestinian, everyone's Palestinian. There's no social cost, right? It's part of the left. There'll be a Q&A after. So it's just really easy. There's no social cost to being for Palestinian rights, right? If you stand up for Zionism, right, then you might make some friends, but it's just easy. You go to socials, you just say all these things. It's slogans, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That's all you need to know. What's the river, what's the sea, who cares? Most people in the Palestinian activists, they've shown this. They don't know what the river or the sea is. They don't know, they can't name them. But it's easy. There was a study coming out of Berkeley that most of them don't know the history, most of them don't care about the history, and most of them don't care about the wider conflicts of the region. That describes the majority of Palestinian activism on campus. Also the UN mandates, right? If you believe in the UN, and I believe in, this global government, and I believe in the European call, and, why would all these countries say Israel's bad if Israel isn't bad? Right? The Security Council spends more than half of its time condemning Israel than actually doing things. Iran had one sanction last year. They currently killed 1,000 people on the streets. UN? Now, we've kind of talked about this, but you use the alt-right to, one, push your ideology, and as a boogeyman, to help, push your cause. So as we talked about, the alt-right and the radical left, intersectional left, work on the exact same ideological axioms when it comes to race. Power, privilege, life's about what type of skin color you have. So you use them to push that, but then the alt-right exists, and they're the boogeyman. Do you want to be alt-right, or do you want to be with us? All right, let's get into some similarities. And we'll get off soon. So both former British colonies split in 1947. And as we learned from Vidya's speech, the same thing in the Muslims actually benefited more under the British rule than any others because they were often used by British as proxies. So they were, when I hear the Arab world complaining about European colonialism, I want to smack my head to the wall because no group in the world benefited more from European colonialism, Europeans included, than the Arabs. But the two-nation theory, this is Pakistan and India. There must be two different nations for two different people. It's a two-state solution, right? We had a two-state solution. Israel and Jordan, we need another two-state solution. 1948 participant plan. No, we don't accept it. We need another two-state solution. There'll be two-state solutions, infinity, until it's just Tel Aviv right there, and then we'll need another two-state solution, and on and on and on. The half-life, insert your own algorithm there. And if you don't think that ideology will come here to Canada, what is it? It's Islamophobia, right? Muslims will be more persecuted than anyone else, so we need, a separate place for Islam. Now, that's not coming anytime soon, but that's what the Islamists are pushing the road down to, of the theory of the two-nation theory. We need a place where we will be safe from Islamophobia. Same thing that happened in India and in Israel. Also, appeasement does not work. Never has. Okay? In 1967, when Israel won the Six-Day War, the Temple Mount, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the holiest place in all of Judaism, was taken back. Jews were allowed to play at their holy ground for the first time, ever, in 2,000 years. Then they decided, you know what, let's give control of the Al-Aqsa Mosque to the Islamic Waqf of Jordan. We'll give the Muslims control of the Al-Aqsa Mosque as a show of good faith. The number one reason given for suicide bombings is because of the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Israel. The number one terrorist brigade in Hamas's core is the Al-Aqsa Brigade. The guy in Toronto who wanted to purify the Al-Aqsa Mosque from the filth of the Jews. What are you talking about? We gave you the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Israel could have burned down the Al-Aqsa Mosque and kicked every stone into the river, and then wrote a mean cartoon, drawn the Prophet Muhammad, and then done a dance. They would be equally as outraged as you giving them the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Tomorrow there'll be a day of rage. You know what we call that? Monday. Every day is a day of rage in the West Bank. And it's a real thing. They do the day of rage, which is called Tuesday. And the same thing with India. This is why India are repealing Article 370 is so important. Do something and say, if you don't show that you're strong enough to stand up for yourself, they will keep pushing. The media is inverting the reality. Complete inversion of reality. Completely inverted reality on these things. Right? We had, the greatest example was probably The Kashmiri culture is under attack by Article 370. It's under attack. 370 revoked. Kashmiri culture is not radical Islam. Right? The people committing the jihad, that's radical Islam. That's anywhere you want it. Real Kashmiri culture was destroyed by radical Islam. This is reviving it. But now we need to save it, right? It's an inversion of reality. Israel's committing ethnic cleansing and genocide. The population's increasing. Again, during 1967, Dagon sent buses to the Palestinians telling them, we're not trying to kick you off your land. Please come back to your land. We'll work something out. We'll offer all this land back in exchange for peace. Then they said, no peace, no recognition, no negotiation. That was the 3 no's. They offered everything back after 67. We thought they would take it. Nope. No peace, no negotiation, no recognition, nothing. The type of genocides that both India and Israel committed is the type of genocide by not allowing someone else to commit a genocide. This is now the definition of genocide to the media's front. Again, Muslim population, Palestinian population increasing. This is a genocide. Hamas shoots rockets. We knock those rockets down. That is a genocide. India stops radical mobs from murdering Kashmiri pundits. That is a genocide. Truth doesn't matter. We have Hamas, you have Hezbollah Mujahideen, they have a charter, they want to kill you all, radical Islam, they're funded by the Canadian government, Justin Trudeau probably will speak at one of their conferences in a few years. Open declarations of hatred against Jews and Hindus, widely ignored and then justified. They could write it down on a piece of paper. Our founding mandate is death to Jews, Hamas. Founding mandate, death to Hindus. Put it up there, no one cares. No one's going to even look. And also we have a long, rich history on our land. We are ancient peoples. Video talked about the connection of Hindus, Kashmir even providing stuff to the ancient temple in Jerusalem. So that's what I'm going to leave off is, know your enemy. There is a danger. It will come here if you do nothing. And you have to fight back. You have to stand up for yourselves. Okay? Because what is the line? What's the line? If you're a Hindu, just celebrating India's independence, that's the new line. Because they'll come for you there. So are you willing to say, I'm just never going to talk about India. I'm never going to talk about my heritage. I'll never go to in public. I'll never go to in public and say I'm Zionist. Because that's the new line. So hide in your little hole all you want. Pretend the world won't come for you. But it will. Thanks so much.